guys, it's me, Bo, here on the Film Scene Investigation channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the 1995 erotic drama, Showgirls. This movie caused a lot of controversy when it was released back in the mid-90s. And I'm looking forward to taking a deep dive into this movie today. Just before we get into it, guys, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. All the support is greatly appreciated. So, Showgirls from 1995 was written by the screenwriter Joe Eszterhas and was directed by the filmmaker Paul Verhoeven. Elizabeth Berkley was in the lead role, with the supporting cast including Robert Davi and Carl McLachlan. Now, I recently watched this movie for the very first time, having already been aware of it for many years. I'd, seen clips online, I'd watched the trailer, so going into it, I knew what to expect. It was interesting to see Elizabeth Berkley in such a provocative role. Like so many out there, I first saw her in the TV show Saved by the Bell, where she, played such a wholesome character. So, seeing her here in Showgirls, it was the complete contrast. When it comes to the narrative of the film, it began with a young woman called Nomi making her way to Las Vegas in pursuit of stardom as a dancer. Nomi came from a troubled background. Her mother was murdered by her father, and then her father committed suicide. So, a pretty chaotic upbringing. The trauma of losing both parents in such a horrific way, that would affect anyone psychologically. And it did with Nomi, who, she basically became a problem child and ended up running away from her foster home. So the trip to Vegas was a new beginning for Nomi. And when she finally got there, she quickly made friends with a fashion designer called Molly, who was played by actress Gina Rivera. While Nomi was pretty hostile towards her, Molly was, kind-hearted, and she realized that Nomi wasn't thinking straight, she was kind of messed up, and so she offered her a place to stay. Nomi accepted the offer, and very quickly, the two became best friends. And once Nomi had a, place to stay, she then focused all her efforts on, trying to ingratiate herself into the showbiz circuit of Las Vegas. Nothing was going to stop her, and she was willing to do anything to make the big time. She began working at this small-time venue called Cheetah's Nightclub, where the boss was a dick and the pay was lousy, but Nomi had no real other choice. She wanted to be on stage, and if that meant working as a stripper, then so be it. Nomi ended up meeting Crystal Connors, the star of the Goddess production at the Stardust Casino. Connors, who was played by actress Gina Gershon, was everything that Nomi wanted to be. This big Vegas star dancing in front of these, big, huge crowds, making loads of money, and, being the center of attention. Nomi went on to mention that she danced at the Cheetah's nightclub. This wasn't something that really impressed Crystal, since she knew that the club had a bad reputation. Nevertheless, this all led to Crystal taking her boyfriend Zach and going to see Nomi perform live. It was kind of interesting to see Zach tagging along with Crystal, but I guess he was interested to find out if Nomi had any talent or not. And Nomi took to the stage and completely wowed the audience with her highly sexualized performance, licking the dance pole and getting completely naked. It was quite a sight to see. And, when I watched that, I did ask myself, I wonder how many times it took Elizabeth Berkley to, nail that performance. Because I can imagine performing such a dance, over and over again. Man, that would be challenging for any actor, male or female. Anyways, Naomi was great. She tore the house down and impressed Crystal and Zach so much that they ended up requesting a private lap dance from her. Naomi wasn't exactly happy with the request, but given Crystal was offering $500 simply for a lap dance, she begrudgingly accepted. The lap dance commenced, and this really was the start of the sexual mind games that all three of them played on each other. You had this strange love triangle emerging, with Zach and Naomi growing closer together, while Crystal was on the sidelines, becoming more and more jealous. And, things got even more complicated when Naomi eventually was offered a part in the Goddess production, working alongside Crystal. You see, Zach had some major influence in the decision-making, which only led to more hostility between Crystal and Naomi. So when it comes to Showgirls, there certainly was a lot going on in this movie. I guess to begin with, I would like to mention the story itself, as it was the classic rags to riches tale that we've seen, so many times before. The rise and fall of an outsider, just trying to, become successful. Only this time it was set in the Vegas showbiz industry. The movie showed Naomi's relentless pursuit of stardom, doing whatever it took to make the big time. And, the further she went, the darker the situation became. By the end of the movie, Naomi had become successful. She was the star. Her dreams had come true, but, at what cost? I did appreciate the film and its negative view on the showbiz industry and how it can really manipulate people into making some drastic, life-changing sacrifices. I mean, we've seen it so many times before with these young celebrities getting fame at an early age, getting sucked into that lifestyle, and then, winding up dead or in prison. And when you look at Naomi's journey from start to finish, she was pretty much heading for disaster one way or another until, she was able to see the error of her ways. We also saw how the industry exploited dancers, particularly the women. And in some ways, you could say that they were treated like cattle. They were commodified to be used and abused. So yes, Showgirls is a hyper-realized version of our own reality, but the point still stands that the showbiz industry indeed can be very dangerous for those who are not cautious. There also seemed to be this criticism of male-dominated workspaces, with this notion that women can only become successful if they sleep with their boss. We saw this very clearly with the Zach and Naomi relationship, where Zach ended up helping Naomi only after they slept together. In some ways you could describe it as a transaction between two people who were able to both gain from it. While I appreciated the film showcasing the sordid underbelly of showbiz, this wasn't something that was a surprise to me. From my understanding, ever since its creation, the Hollywood industry has been run on favors and backhanders. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's how Hollywood has been, that's how it is, and that's how it will continue to go on in the future. Nevertheless, I did appreciate the film, exploring the ugly side of showbiz, but it wasn't anything I didn't know already. When it comes to the acting in Showgirls, credit has to go to Elizabeth Berkley, who delivered a very memorable performance as Nomi. This was the actress's biggest role in her career, and there's no denying that she fully committed to the part. She clearly did a lot of work in pre-production, preparing for those grueling choreographed dance scenes, so when it came time, her performance looked authentic. I don't know how long it took Elizabeth Berkley to nail those routines. I can only imagine it must have taken weeks, if not months. But credit to her for putting the effort in and making it all look legit. Now, upon the film's release, Berkley was heavily criticised for her performance, which to me does seem a little unfair. I understand that Elizabeth Berkley isn't this, mega talented, award-winning actress, but where she lacks in the acting department, she certainly made up for with her physicality on screen. In my eyes, Berkley kind of got a raw deal out of it, but I'm just glad that, now, after many years, a lot of people have come round to, appreciating this film and her performance. I thought Robert Davi was very good in the role as Al Torres, the promoter at the Cheetahs nightclub and the boss of Nomi. Torres was this sleazy manipulator, but he took a shine to Nomi and gave her an opportunity when no one else would. Now, while I enjoyed the performance, I have to say that given the limited screen time that the character had, I don't know, I kind of thought that Davi was wasted in this film. Davi is a very skilled actor. He's been in some great movies over the years. He plays a great bad guy. But unfortunately, in Showgirls, I felt that he really wasn't given enough time to showcase his talents. When I saw Davi's name pop up in the credits, I was excited to see what he'd bring to the table. But while it was good, it wasn't really noteworthy. But that's not Davi's fault. That's the fault of the filmmakers for underutilizing the character. Production-wise, Showgirls was a very well-made movie that showcased this hyper-realized vision of Las Vegas entertainment. Showgirls reportedly had a $45 million budget. That doesn't surprise me because from what I saw, it was, all there on screen, from the, extravagant sets to, the neon lights. It was a very big production. When I think about it, it's a shame that this movie didn't do very well at the box office because after watching it, I really did enjoy it and I found it far more entertaining than most movies we see released today. All we get now is, superhero movies and pointless remakes. So movies like Showgirls, just wouldn't be made today. And yeah, that's a shame. Hollywood, used to take more risks and now they just play it safe and now it's in decline. So there you go. So, dislikes for Showgirls from 1995. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be the romantic subplot between Nomi and the character James, who was played by actor Glenn Plummer. While Nomi was on her ascension to the top, She ended up meeting James at a nightclub. He was a fellow dancer and was immediately attracted to her. The two had this on-off relationship that failed to develop into anything serious. And, for me, I just didn't really like the James character. I mean, let's face it, the character was a lowlife, a cheat who couldn't hold down a job. So when he started hanging around with Nomi, I did start to question why exactly, would she be interested in a guy like that? She was extremely ambitious, she was aiming high. The complete opposite to James, who was, in multiple dead-end jobs. I know opposites attract, and, I know they had a love of dance that they shared, but to me that wasn't a strong enough reason to warrant a relationship between the two. James couldn't offer her anything she already couldn't get for herself, so it just kind of seemed silly that she would, become romantically involved with someone like him. Also, like I said, it didn't go anywhere. They never got together, and it really made no difference to the outcome of the main storyline within the film. The only thing it did do was bloat the runtime. So, if you ask me, I would have removed this whole romantic subplot. It would have made for a better overall viewing experience. And so, ratings for Showgirls from 1995. I'm going to be rating this movie a strong 6 out of 10. Showgirls was this big budget, erotic thriller from Paul Verhoeven, and I must say, I really enjoyed it. Going into this movie, I, had the mindset, to not take things too seriously, and I think that's the best way to, view this movie. Given the dark humor that was in Paul Verhoeven's other movie, RoboCop, an instant cult classic, I was prepared for some tongue-in-cheek satire that I knew the director could deliver. I also really enjoyed Elizabeth Berkley in the lead role as Nomi. Credit to her for shedding that good girl image that, she had at the time. Her character had such a wild journey, full of highs and lows, and it kind of blurred the lines between victim and aggressor, and I thought that was some very clever storytelling. If you've seen Showgirls, then please let me know your thoughts and memories in the comments section below. For those who haven't, it is a recommendation from me. Just be prepared for a lot of nudity. And well, that's all from me today, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed my review of Showgirls from 1995. I'll be back next week, of course, with another cult movie review. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course, take care.